Good afternoon. My name is Joseph Lloyd, and I am a huge fan of cars used in old British TV series filmed between the late 1950s and late 1990s. Join me on a journey as we look back on over 40 years of British television and its relationship with the automobile. I made a selection of videos last year talking about a lot of these series, and I'm doing it again to make them even better. So today we come to another series filmed at Elstree Studios for ITC. This time it's not Monty Berman who's the producer. It's actually Gerry Anderson himself with his business partner Reg Hill. They, by this stage, had finished with what was called Century 21 TV, making the puppet shows and making UFO. And they formed a new company in the early 70s called Group 3. But they still had a very close relationship with ITC and Lou Grade. And Lou Grade, I think, came up with the format for The Protectors. This was a series about private detectives, very glamorous and jet-setting for really no discernible reason. Plenty of money, who went around the world solving cases. The head of the organisation was Harry Rule, based in London, an American played by Robert Vaughn. His kind of two main people he worked with were the Contessa di Contini, who was a British widow of an Italian aristocrat, played by Nyree Dawn Porter, and Paul Buchet, who was a Frenchman based in Paris, although he seemed to not spend too much time there, played by Tony Anholt. Also in the first series, there was the Contessa's bodyguard, played by Anthony Chen, creatively named Chino. And then, let me just get this right, Yasuko Nakazumi, Japanese actress who was married to Ray Austin, who was a big name in this television series in the 60s and 70s. And she played Suki. Again, somebody really was very imaginative when naming the characters on The Protectors. There was also a dog who you'd see in the title sequence, who was Harry's little pet. Harry Rule himself was divorced. One of the episodes looks about his family life and possibly looks at the reason why he got divorced, and looks about his ex-wife and his son. There are many episodes that are set abroad, and this time they don't use a lot of stock footage, so they actually went to a lot of these places. Venice, Austria, sometimes to more normal places like Paris, Rome, and actually there are a number of episodes set in Malta, including possibly the worst episode of any IT series SBC has ever seen, called It Could Be Practically Anywhere on the Island, and Robert Vaughn decided to direct it himself. Please don't watch it. It's not very good. Some of the episodes, though, are a lot better. One of the things that hampers The Protectors, possibly, is the fact that it was made on 16mm film as opposed to 35mm film, that everything that I've talked about so far is Champions, Department S. And so you can really tell when you have a DVD release that it's not very good quality. Because they had to go and film abroad, they obviously spent a lot of money on that and occupied many hotels and things. And so one of the ways they could save money was by using 16mm film. There were, however, loads and loads of exotic cars in the Protectors, and the lifestyle was generally quite exciting. But another thing that hampered the series was the fact that it was only 25 minutes per episode. So you haven't really got time to develop any characters. Everything happens really, really fast, unless the episode's rubbish, like WAM Parts 1 and 2, which was possibly one of the most boring things I've ever seen in my life. You just watch people walking or driving through Austria for about 20 minutes and nothing happens. It's really, really bad. When the Protectors works, it works really, really well. There's episodes like Triple Cross, which is very exciting. Wheels is very exciting. There's even an episode written by Brian Clemens called Think Back. That's very good. But some of them are just not. They're just sort of rubbish, and this is a bit of a problem. You can just tell Gerry Anderson perhaps wasn't that into the Protectors. It was sort of handed to him by Lou Grade and given to him as an option to do, and there's no doubt that it is something that's quite watchable, but it's all over the place. Some of the plots don't make any sense. There really isn't much time to develop anything, particularly because the episodes are so short. Although, unlike a lot of these series I'm talking about, it ran for two series, and it was filmed between 1971 and 1973, broadcast between 1972 and 1974. There's an awful lot to talk about with the Protectors in terms of the cars, so let's give it a go. The Contessa di Contini was a very rich character. Whether or not she and Harry Raw would ever sort of perhaps decide to move in together, I don't know. There's hints of it all through the time, but anyway, she had a lot of cars. There's loads and loads of cars she has. The main one in the first series is probably a Citroen SM. It's a 71 car. It was actually a Citroen press car, although it's not UK registered. It's like a Paris registered car. And that appears in the episodes. We just get the notes here. Your Witness, King Kong, Disappearing Trick, Balance of Terror, and The Bodyguards. Very expensive, very luxurious car, which would be the sort of thing you expect to see from her. The next car, which is mainly in the second series, that's in Bagman, Wheels, Route 27, Blockbuster, and A Pocket Full of Posies, is a 1972 Volvo 1800 ES in a nice kind of gold colour. Unlike the Citroen, we've got a registration number for that one, NRT 381L. And that is a car that I would very, very much like to drive. It looks kind of interesting, considering it's a pretty old design with an estate body put on the back of it. It's, you know, this is 10 years after the beginning of the Saint series, and we're still using fundamentally the same car as a slightly different body style. So it's obviously a very good car. That wasn't the only one she had in the second series. The other one would be a 1973 NSU R080. I thought that would appeal to some of you chaps out there. That's YMJ621L and is used in Tiger of the Goat, Blockbuster, Dragon Chase, and Zeke's Blues. There's a car chase in that episode, Dragon Chase, with a Thames van, and I don't know why, but the NSU comes off worse. Stupid, isn't it? Another car that the Contessa has, normally driven by Chino, her chauffeur, is a Rolls-Royce Silver Shadow 1 from 1967. Now, in the first episode, it's called 2,000 Feet to Die. It's actually supposed to be another car. I think the real plate on it is PGU1E. However, she normally has CON1 on it. And it's used in an awful lot of episodes. A Kind of Wild Justice, King Kong, The Big Hit, with a little help from my friends, Vocal and Talk Down. So she had a lot of cars, and, you know, I could go on for ages about Cars and Protectors. I'm only giving you some edited highlights because there's just so many of them. Harry Raw, fortunately, was a bit more straightforward in terms of the cars which he had, and the main one is a 1970 Jensen Interceptor. Thought some of you might like that. Supplied by Jensen themselves of West Bromwich, like the Jensen CV8 from the Baron, BEA 898J. That lasted through both the series, which is brilliant. None of the rest of the cars did. Paul Buchet always got a bit of a raw deal. One of the reasons for that is you look at the title sequence, which you've just seen, and he does appear at the end of it, but he does not get a credit like everyone else does. So, stars Robert Vaughn and Nyree Dawn Porter, but not starring Tony Anholt. I don't know why. And the cars he got weren't that good either in comparison with the ones particularly the Contessa had. So, in the first series, he has a Citroen Diane 6, if he actually gets a regular car at all. For some reason, that is in episodes based in London, although it's got a French plate on it. I don't know why. It's left-hand drive. And then he gets no left-hand drive car in the second series, which is a 1972 Opel Commodore B GS Coupe, LMV 360K. That would have been very, very soon after the car actually came out. It's a nice-looking car, actually. Floor pan, of course, same as the transcontinental Vauxhall Victors and VXs and other things. So, yes, those are the main characters' cars used in the Protectors. With 52 episodes in total, although 25 minutes is the running time of each of them, unlike, everything else I've talked about, it's 50 minutes. There's an awful lot of cars in them, and I can only scratch the surface, really, in terms of finding things that I've found interesting. So we'll just go through some more of those now. In the episode Disappearing Trick, the Contessa has another Citroen in her underground garage. A very new one as well. It's a 1971 Citroen GS Club on French plate, left-hand drive, in a sort of unique yellow colour. In the episode Case of the Right, there is a 1963 Alfa Romeo Giulia 1600 Spider. It's a very pretty car. That's in a car chase with a Maserati Mistral that we'll talk about a bit later. In the episode The Bridge, there's a 1970 Citroen Nyree, which I think is a Spanish-built model. In the episode The Quick Brown Fox, there is one of the weirdest vans I've ever seen. It's a 1969 DKW Emosa F1000D, and it's got 4 rings on the front of it, like an Audi. It's really strange. DKW, which was kind of absorbed into Audi eventually, clearly had a factory in Spain, the Emosa factory, and that's what they had. So if you want to see rare Spanish vans, then this is the series for you. Also, some other rare Spanish vehicles. In the numbers game, there is a 1966 Dodge Barrieros Dart, and Dodge Barrieros was a sort of company that made Dodge cars under license. Barrieros is a very familiar name for anybody who knows anything about the Spanish car market. And then the Quick Brown Fox, there's another Dodge Barrieros Dart. This time it's a 69 3700 GT. And it looks a bit different. You would have seen the photographs of that. They were a bit expensive, really, for most people in Spain at the time. But it's nice to know they were built anyway. Earlier on, I referred to episodes being made in Malta, and one of the most distinctive cars used actually in these Maltese episodes was an RS Bug, June buggy. I don't know what date that is. I think it's based on a Beetle. I think they were made in Britain, but obviously sold in Malta. And that's an episode called A Matter of Life and Death, driven by both Paul Buchet and Harry Rawl. In The Bridge, another car used in that one is a 1965 Ferrari 275 GTS that Harry Rawl has somehow got his hands on. It's not the most, shall we say, subtle car, but, this is the Protectors. I don't think they did things too subtly, really. in the episode Disappearing Trip, there's actually two Ford Mustangs. They're supposed to be the same one, but because the episode is partly filmed in France and partly filmed in Britain, they just slapped a plate on, I think, a 65 Mustang to make it like a 67 one. So if you watching an episode and you wonder why the car is looking a bit different in some shots, and that's the reason why. 67 in France, 65 in Britain. In Wheels, which is one of my favourite episodes, there is a 1969 Ford Escort twin cam. That one, I think, is a rally prepped car. It's just got CS1 on the front of it. Very early, sort of sporty Escort. It's interesting to see that used in something like this. Another Ford that some of you would like is a 1973 Ford Capri 3000 GXL, used in a series called, the episode called The Tiger and the Goat. That's a post-facelift Mark 1 Capri. They're very rare now, and that one looks particularly nice. Let's finish up our look at the cars as protectors by rattling through 7 final ones. First of all is the 1965 Maserati Mistral 4 litre. That's driven by Robert Vaughn in The Case for the Right. It has that car chase with the Alfa Giulia Spider. In Petard, there's a 1969 Mini Gem Mark II. It's like a sort of mini-based kit car. It's bright yellow. In the episode Bodyguards, there is a 1971 Saab 99, which you would have seen in the photograph. I just happened to find those quite interesting. They were rare and expensive at the time in Britain. In Sugar and Spice, there's a 1971 Volkswagen variant. Now, that's just the name that it is. It's just called the Volkswagen variant. There's no other name I think I could find about it. That's just what they were sold under. I mean, it's obviously not a Beetle, but, you know, it looks a bit like one, doesn't it? Next, in Petard, the car that the Mini Gem gets in a chase with is a 1972 Rover 2000 SC, and it's actually got a Rover factory plate on it, DXC979L. It looks a little bit like the one that Matt Richardson and Furious Driving has, although his is white. In the episode Implicado, there is a 1969 Seat Sport Spider 850. That's a very interesting looking car. Seat obviously bought his under license from Fiat, and that episode set in Spain, so that makes sense. And the last one I'll show, which is the van with a funny aerial on the top, that's an episode called Triple Cross. It's a 1964 Thames 400E, and I don't know if you've ever seen a clockwork car, but that's what it looks like. It looks just a bit funny, which is why I decided to include it. So there we go. That was a look at some of the cars used in Gerry Anderson's intriguing series of Protectors. Is it worth watching today if you're just a general fan of television? Well, it might be. Some of the plots are a little bit weird. Some of the episodes aren't very good, but some of them are quite strong. And generally, it has got some good music. It's got a good theme tune, sung by Tony Christie. And the incidental music by John Cameron is pure sort of 70s nostalgia. It's fantastic. So, yes, possibly if you're a fan of other ITC series or just Gerry Anderson in general, it might be one to look at. But, you know, if you come across some poor episodes along the way, then don't blame me. Anyway, thank you ever so much indeed for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so for more of the same. We'll be looking at more series later this week. And don't forget to like this video and leave a comment below. I've also got a Facebook page, facebook.com/Lloyd Vehicle Consulting. Thank you ever so much indeed for watching.